Hi, Jakob Stief here, the long-haired freaky dude. Today I'm going to review the ancient Grecian tragedy Heracleidae by Euripides, translated into English by Edward P. Coleridge. This is a great play and glorifies the sanctity of Athens. There's a lot of connections betwixt this and the play Oedipus et Colonus, which has some very similar themes in this sanctity of Athens. So what happens here is it takes place briefly after Heracles dies, accidentally at the hands of his wife. It follows his children who are being pursued by a frightened Eurystheus. And Eurystheus, he has a history of being frightened, and his history of being frightened has caused him a lot of trouble, especially with the 12 labors of Hercules. Eurystheus fears that Heracles' children will seek revenge on him for, all the trouble, because, that's what he did, all the trouble that he caused Heracles, their father, whenever he was alive. So naturally, the only solution he sees is to kill Heracles' children, kind of like The Walking Dead. You don't leave any loose ends. The children, who are still quite young and pretty much unable to defend themselves against this frightened man, men, like animals, when frightened, are sometimes much more dangerous than the unfrightened ones. They seek protection under their father's friend Iolus, and they go to the altar of Zeus in Athens. And generally, in Greek custom, it is custom that the altar is to be a safe place where you cannot be killed, where you cannot be harmed. No one is to be killed while seeking refuge at the altar, and we have seen this same tactic for protection in many other Greek plays as well. Here's an interesting dialogue concerning altars. It seems evildoers are to find a refuge here. To which Demophon replies, "A temple of the gods is an asylum to the world." I find it interesting that they are so open with who they let into their temples. Even evil men can come into the temples. In that respect, I find it almost Christian-like. And this is sort of a vibe that I've been getting while reading through the histories of Herodotus, that anyone can use any other culture's temple to worship their own gods, because as the histories of Herodotus pointed out, a lot of people viewed other cultures' gods as their same gods, just with different names. But this just adds another layer to that openness, which I was talking about. Anyways, the king of Athens appears, Demophon, and he declares that Heracles' children are to be safe from prosecution. They will be protected under Athenian rule. And this is just really great. It's really awesome. Athens has a wonderful history of letting people in, a wonderful history of openness and taking refuge. We see a very similar story in Oedipus et Colonus, where Oedipus is being sought by Creon of Thebes. Well, Demophon's father, Theseus, grants Oedipus protection, in this case, despite Oedipus' horrible past, despite how ugly of a man he is, having killed his father, having had sex with his mother, and had children with her. I mean, it wasn't his fault, it was a misfortune, an accident, one could say. But it's just incredible to see how hospitable ancient Athens was back then. And it's especially good to see that Theseus' son Demophon is carrying on the tradition. The land is ever ready in honest cause to aid the helpless, and they would rather die, for honor ranks before life with men of worth. Unfortunately, the oracles have a different agenda. Demophon, he was ready to get the Athenian army and attack Eurystheus and his army just to save Heracles' children, just to save these refugees who came to their town. But the oracles say that in order for them to win, they have to sacrifice a woman of their own. Unfortunately for the children, Demophon's hospitality works both ways. He's not going to ask any of his own Athenian people to kill themselves. So he doesn't want that to happen to his own people. He cares about his own people, just like he cares for refugees. So he tells them that they're just going to have to find somewhere else to seek refuge. To prevent this, a daughter of Heracles offers herself up for sacrifice, and then the war commences. Iolus is rather old here, but during the battle he is able to regain his youth, and here he is able to do some incredible feats, including capture Eurystheus alive. And after he's captured, a debate ensues on whether or not to kill him. But oddly enough, Eurystheus actually encourages them to execute himself, because he says that once he dies, his spirit will protect Heracles and the city of Athens, which is just, it's ironic on so many levels, but whatever, it's a Greek tragedy. I think this play is especially relevant today because of the discussion on Demophon's decision-making concerning refugees coming into his city. I particularly like Demophon's stance on refugees. He is open to helping anyone who needs his or his city's help, but with limitations as perhaps it should be. Ultimately, the people Demophon cares about most is his own people, and if he's put in a situation where he must choose between refugees or his own, he will ultimately, and without thought, choose his own people over the refugees. When told that he would need to sacrifice one of his own in order to save the children of Heracles, he refuses to accept that. He refuses to sacrifice one of his own to help these refugees he doesn't know, even though he knows that in doing so, he's probably condemning these children to certain death. As horrible as it is, we must know where to draw the line when helping people who aren't our own. Yes, it's true that we are all humans indeed, and that we should all love one another, but we don't love one another. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's just true. Not everyone loves everyone. So, because of this, it creates cases arise where we must choose between the lesser of two evils. It sucks. It sucks. It really sucks, but it's something that we have to do because there's evil men in the world. Demophon here had to choose two evils. Kill one of his own people, someone that he knows, someone that he shares culture with, in order to let these refugees who he doesn't know survive, or let the refugees die in order to keep one of his own alive. Thankfully, he ultimately didn't have to go through with the decision, but, he decided on saving his own person rather than the refugees, but thankfully, he didn't really have to go through with that. It's horrible that one has to make the decision in the first place, but it's a decision that one must make if the situation arises. And I suppose if I had to make the decision choosing one of my own over a refugee, I would choose one of my own in a heartbeat. I wouldn't need to think twice. Call it selfish, call it whatever you want, but if it's two people that we're dealing with, I'm going to choose the one that I love, the one that I know I love, rather than someone who I don't know, who I am unsure of. Of course, the preferable situation would be one where you don't have to choose between two people. But what if you do have to choose? What if you are forced to choose? You can't just sit there idly and not choose. You have to make a decision. It's not that Demophon doesn't care about the refugees. It's just that he doesn't share that cultural bond with them. It's just that he doesn't quite love them as much because they aren't his own. He hasn't shared this bond with them. It's that kinship. If death of his own people isn't a result of saving the refugees, then he's going to be more than happy to save the refugees. He's even willing to go so far as to wage war with them because he knows his people are ultimately stronger than the Euripides' people. So I think this is really something which we need to consider today. We have these refugees from the Middle East seeking shelter in our own countries. Do we care about them? Absolutely. But does caring about them, does embracing them with open arms create a substantial risk to our own people? If the answer is yes, then we really need to start reconsidering our options and start tightening the reins on who we let in. If there is substantial risk that these refugees could just be a Trojan horse to let in a terrorist or two who could cause substantial damage to our own people, to fellow Americans, to fellow Germans, fellow Frenchmen, whatever country you're in. If the answer is yes, then maybe we need to start caring about our own people more than the refugees. With the refugees today, they don't necessarily have an evil entity chasing after them, wanting to get them back that we have to deal with. Nor do we have to sacrifice one of our favorite pop stars to the gods of diabetes in order to find their protection. But there is indeed the possibility of espionage by a terroristic entity like ISIS. Dangerous, evil people, terrorists, disguising themselves as helpless refugees just so that they could seek entrance into our country. Just so that they may be led into our borders. And if we feel that that is a legitimate threat, that that is not something that we can successfully screen, then perhaps we need to start turning away these people until we can find a better way to screen them, so that we do not have to sacrifice our loved ones for people whom we do not know. Well, that is the end of my rant, and consequently the end of my review. I thank you for watching. I'm Jakob Stief, the long-haired freaky dude. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you read this play, and I hope it makes you think about current events. If you want to see more great book reviews, I encourage you to check out my channel and hit the subscribe button. I also encourage you to check out the Great Books Challenge, where we're reading through the great books of the Western world. A whole bunch of great stuff there. I'm sure you'll love it. I'm also going off to college soon. The price is going to be a bit expensive, so if you could spare $1 or $2, please go check out my GoFundMe and go help me out. It will be much, much appreciated. Well, thank you for watching. You all be sure to have a good day now. Look out for the next video.